You're listening to the Industrial Commissioning Association podcast, where we discuss best practices for industrial plant process and energy system commissioning. Get ready to say no to outdated industry norms and say yes to improved project performance. Here's your host, Paul Turner.
Hello, everyone. Welcome today. I've got a great presentation today. Today, we're going through really the heart of the commissioning process. This is everything related to commissioning engineering. This is the phase of projects where you must be focused on commissioning right at the beginning of projects so that you can plan for success. So we'll get started here in just a minute or two. Before we get started, if you haven't already, become a member of the Industrial Commissioning Association. There's no cost to join. You get access to the Industrial Commissioning Standard. You get access to a whole host of resources to help you with commissioning. And you can do that at icxa.net/join. So definitely check that out if you're not already a member, and you'll get access to tons of amazing resources to help you with commissioning and help you grow in your career to become a leader of projects so you can lead them to success. All right, so let's get started here. Today, we're going to go through the ICA Global Commissioning Standard, and this is part 3 of our 5-part series. We're going to go through ICA 005, which is the phase of projects for planning your commissioning engineering. This is really how you can turn into the authority that your projects need to lead projects to success. So as I mentioned, this is part 3 of our 5-part commissioning series. In the past, you can check out the replays. We went through the phases of commissioning process and the terminology. Last week, we went through roles and responsibilities and commissioning strategy and planning. Today, we're going to go through ICA 005, which is commissioning engineering, manufacturing, and construction completions. And then be sure to catch our next episodes for 006 and 7, 8, and 9 so that you get the complete overview of all of the commissioning process. Now, I'm going to go through the presentation. If you have any questions, please enter them into the chat. I'll have a Q&A at the end here. I'll go through everyone's questions and make sure you get the information that you need for commissioning. So there's really a blind spot in the industry, right? We often hear that commissioning is just testing at the end, and everybody's focused on deferring that till later in the projects, kicking the can down the road and dealing with commissioning much later. But the true commissioning managers and project managers, they're adapting and proactively dealing with commissioning issues before they even arise. It's a great form of risk management. Oftentimes, though, project managers are just reacting to commissioning projects rather than proactively planning for success. So there's definitely a blind spot in the industry, and ICA 005 is really your blueprint for commissioning leadership so you can close this blind spot and really plan your projects for success. When this blind spot exists on projects, there's lots of delays. There can be equipment failures, misaligned vendors, construction groups and commissioning groups aren't getting along, and confrontations or disputes, and nobody has a clear understanding of what success looks like during commissioning. When you implement ICA 005 on your projects, then you really have that map in your hand to be able to guide projects to success. And the true leaders on projects are preventing issues before they even happen rather than reacting to them after the fact. So there's really a journey to become this true commissioning leader and step up and lead projects. And right now you might, if you're working on projects in commissioning, right now you might just feel like you're following orders, right? You're just, here's a checklist, go check this piece of equipment, go troubleshoot that issue. And you feel kind of stuck just waiting for issues to arise. And I'm sure you've worked on projects where you must see or think there's got to be a better way. It can't be this chaos at the end of projects all the time. You're frustrated by delays. You're frustrated that nobody's stepping up and leading projects, and you're not getting the guidance and support that you need to lead projects to success. But true commissioning leaders, they take ownership of the entire end-to-end commissioning process. They're able to actually control the outcome of their project and control the success of commissioning at the end of projects when you're engaged as a true commissioning leader right from the beginning of projects. And when you step up and you take these leadership roles, then you can really get recognized and get rewarded for the true leadership role that commissioning management is on projects to lead projects to success. And the decision is yours. You can choose how you want to proceed in your career, right? If you want to be the one doing the testing in the field, that's fine. We need those people on projects to be doing the testing. But we need a lot of people to step up and be the true leaders to lead projects to success. And that's what commissioning is really about, is leadership to lead and guide project teams for successful delivery in the end. So the big shift really is that proactive element of commissioning, right? Commissioning managers, lots of them, they just react to problems, but commissioning leaders, like I mentioned before, they step up and prevent issues from ever happening and guide projects to success. And ICA 005, the fifth part of our ICA Global Commissioning Standard, really is that document to give you the superpower and give you the map on how to lead projects to success. But not everyone is willing to step up to this challenge. There's still some that just prefer to get their checklists and go do their testing in the field and gather data. And that's fine. We need people to do those roles. So it's up to you if you want to make this big shift and step into a leadership role and actually make a significant impact on projects and guide them to success. So ICA 005 is your framework to do that. There's 3 portions of ICA 005, and we'll go through each one of them in more detail here. The first one is commissioning engineering, and this often gets missed. There's lots of projects that don't even implement this phase of commissioning engineering and just overlook this completely, not understanding what a true commissioning process looks like. But the commissioning engineering phase of projects is in conjunction with your detailed design and engineering, and it's really to create your battle plan, your game plan of how you're going to execute commissioning later. That's primarily defined in our commissioning execution plan before commissioning team even mobilizes to site to define what needs to be done for commissioning. Now, we'll go through that in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. The second part of ICA 005 is the manufacturing phase, and this identifies the off-site testing that's required during factory acceptance testing and, more critically, during integrated factory acceptance testing. These are critical stages of the commissioning process because anything we can test earlier in the project before equipment is even delivered to site is going to mitigate risk. And everything that's tested off-site must align with our on-site testing. So the manufacturing phase, particularly factory acceptance testing and integrated factory acceptance testing, is a critical part of the commissioning process. And then construction completion. This is where a lot of commissioning standards start and pick up the process, but they're missing the entire early involvement of commissioning on projects. This is the turnover process to transition from area-based installations to systems-based completion, and there's a definite process to follow during our construction completion phase to allow this to happen. All right, so during our commissioning engineering phase, this is where we define our commissioning execution plan, and this is how we define the details, the specifics of how to align projects for completion during on-site testing at the end of projects, right from the beginning during day one of projects. Like I said before, leaders don't wait for problems to occur on projects. They control the process of how projects are completed by implementing the processes defined in ICA 005. Your commissioning execution plan is your game plan, that guided process that's going to show your commissioning team and everyone else on the project, from construction to design groups to project management groups to everybody, on what success looks like during commissioning and how projects are going to come together for completion at the end. And this is created before any of the work on site even starts. So there's lots of examples of projects that implement these processes and apply the processes defined in ICA 005, and it's pretty easy to show the benefits and the value of proactive planning for commissioning that can save projects millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars by having a structured plan to complete them. There's several inputs that go into your commissioning execution plan, and just depending on the size of your projects, you may choose to split these out into individual definitions, separate plans to define each aspect of your commissioning execution plan. So how are you going to manage commissioning? That's your commissioning execution management plan. Systematization is a really big part of this process to transition from area-based installations to systems-based completions, and that's all defined in your project systematization plan for how the project is going to be broken up and segregated into functional groups of equipment, and define that transition from construction completions to on-site testing during static commissioning and dynamic commissioning. Our interface management plan, this is an important aspect because there's lots of groups working on projects and lots of interfaces between different contractors, different groups working on projects, even just physical interfaces between the various systems that are defined on projects. And how are we going to manage all of these interfaces? And how are we going to manage the transition of groups working on one system and the other system, and how the interface between these two groups is going to work? Your factory acceptance test and integrated factory acceptance test implementation plan. So how is that going to align with what's required for on-site testing? That's all defined in your FAT implementation plan. Safe transition plan. This is very important because everything we do during commissioning must be done in a safe manner. And as systems are being transitioned from one group to the other, we need to make sure that this is being done in a safe manner. So this is all defined in our safe transition plan to make sure that transition of roles and responsibilities and physical assets and documentation is all done in a safe manner, so that all these transitions are smooth between all groups involved. Our commissioning management software, that should be CMS software management plan. How are we going to be using commissioning software on the project? What system are we going to be using? What expectation do we have of all other groups working on projects for how they are to be interacting with the software? This is an important definition of our commissioning execution plan. Commissioning readiness plan. So at some point, we're going to be ready to actually start on-site testing. What are the plans and processes we need to go through? What are the reviews that need to be undertaken to make sure that we're actually ready for testing? Alarm management plan. This is an important one as well, because our systems continue to get more and more complex with large distributed SCADA systems that are generating alarms from all over the site, all over the plant. And if there's no plan to manage these alarms, then you can pretty quickly have an alarm system that's just flooded with a whole bunch of nuisance alarms, making it pretty much useless because there's no validity to anything that's coming into the system. So we need an alarm management plan of how we're going to manage those to make sure that we deliver quality HMI systems at the end of the project. And there's a document template for all of these. You can log into the members area of the Industrial Commissioning Association. You can download each of these document templates, shows you exactly what's in there. So we're making this as easy as possible for you to help you and guide you create your commissioning execution plan for your project so you can plan for success. So definitely log into the Industrial Commissioning Association's members area. There's no cost to join. You get access to all of these document templates, making completing your documentation for your planning of commissioning much easier. So these are documents that are right out of ICA 005 for commissioning engineering. The first one shows the transition from area-based installations to systems-based completion. So it's natural that contractors will install installations by area. It's just more efficient for long lead equipment, material deliveries, workforce planning, all those things. But at some point, usually about 60 or 70% through construction, then the work methodologies must transition from area-based installations to systems-based completions. So this transition will then start to align completions of the construction work to complete by system. When we're moving into commissioning and on-site testing, we need systems delivered by system so that we can actually test a group of equipment for functionality together. If we're missing even just one item, if we're missing the critical instrument that's an input to the start logic in our process control logic, well, then we can't move much forward with testing because we're missing one item. So we need systems complete, actually 100% complete. And that's the first construction completion milestone that needs to be met as we move into commissioning. And then there'll be a series of phased handovers as each of these systems are transitioned from construction to commissioning. So that's a very helpful figure. You can check that out in the commissioning standard. On the right here, we have the process to develop some of the different levels of scheduling that are required. Of course, we're going to start with a very high level project overview schedule right at the beginning of projects when we're completing our project commissioning plan, our commissioning strategy. But as we move through the process, as we move through commissioning engineering phase, we're going to be developing our detailed schedule, our level 3 or our level 4 and 5 schedule, which is down to our daily execution of tasks, allowing us to plan and execute commissioning and manage the work so that everything remains on track. So then the next phase is our manufacturing phase. And this is really an important aspect of the commissioning process to make sure that we're identifying issues much earlier. This can often get overlooked on projects or done somewhat poorly because it's always a discussion in the factory as well. Can we skip this and can we save some time and get this equipment to site and test later on sites? And the natural response everybody will say is, sure, yeah, we can do that. But by doing that, you're deferring risk till later in your project. We want to retire risk. We want to mitigate risk much earlier instead of stacking all the risk at the end of projects. So offsite testing for factory acceptance testing and integrated factory acceptance testing is very important. Particularly for integrated factory acceptance testing, some of the systems we're working with on projects, such as control and protection cabinets, are quite complex. They're complex from a hardware perspective, and they're complex from a software perspective. And with only the hardware, these cubicles are pretty much useless, right? Software PLC logic is integral to a lot of these systems. Everything's automated these days. And we need to be integrating both the hardware and the software in the factory and testing these systems for functionality before they even arrive at site. If you're doing that integration on site much later, then you're deferring all the risk in your project till much later, and it usually leads to problems. The construction completions phase is really the heart of the transition from construction to commissioning, and this requires some very particular planning to make sure that this takes place precisely. On the surface of it, it seems pretty straightforward, right? Install some stuff and then go test it. But there's a lot of details involved, and if that's not planned very precisely, then it will not go very well. If the construction groups are handing over unfinished work, then there's not much we can do from a commissioning perspective because we're missing items that aren't complete from a construction standpoint. But when you use and structure your projects around ICA 005, then you're able to transition and turn over systems on time, even if there's construction delays, so that we can meet commissioning timelines and not delay the project. When ICA 005 is implemented on projects, then leaders own punch lists and they're able to close out issues in advance rather than delaying issues till later in the project. And with a proactive system handover and the processes defined in ICA 005, then you're able to hand over systems from construction to commissioning on time so that you can proceed with on-time commissioning. This is really the critical milestone on every project, is your construction completion milestone. Now, you may be familiar with this labeled as mechanical completion. We've transitioned to the term construction completion for a more complete mechanical, electrical, automation definition of complete. But this very critical milestone on projects often gets blurred. And if you blur any of the aspects of construction and commissioning, that just leads to a whole host of problems. This figure is right out of ICA 005, and it very precisely defines what this construction completion milestone means for what is taking place prior to construction completion by construction groups to achieve construction completion, and then what is taking place after construction complete milestone by the commissioning team for static commissioning and dynamic commissioning. Now, this is a very precise milestone, and if it's not defined precisely, then there'll be lots of confusion on who's responsible for what complete actually means, and you'll find often on projects that everybody will say they're done, but everybody's definition of done seems to mean something different, right? That's why this needs to be very clearly defined, very precisely to every tagged piece of equipment, every test item that must be complete, all the documentation that must be complete, so that there's no ambiguity on what construction complete actually means, with a payment milestone associated with that. This is really the critical milestone that defines the contract milestone for completion of your construction contract, and it must be very clearly defined so that everybody knows what the end of their scope of work is and where the commissioning team's scope of work starts. So focus on this construction complete milestone. It is the most critical milestone on your projects. And one of the main reasons that commissioning folks need to be involved early in projects is to make this crystal clear in contracts, in construction contracts, before they're even awarded. So everybody has a clear vision of what this milestone looks like and has a clear understanding of the goalpost to achieve to complete construction. So if you're not using a standardized process on projects, if you're not using ICA 005, then it's very common to be frustrated by delays and rework. There's issues that are arising, there's incomplete construction, and without a structured process, then everything is always reactive, and you're just essentially waiting for problems and troubleshooting issues rather than proactively completing projects. I've heard for decades the commissioning industry, they're struggling to be heard, right? They're begging for a standardized process. Well, this is the process to follow in ICA 005 to structure your projects for success before construction contracts are even awarded. Lots of people maybe aren't as interested in that. They're more interested in being a follower, and they just want to do what they're told. But when you're implementing ICA 005 on your projects and structuring them for success right from the beginning, then this is the commissioning leadership that we're looking for to be able to determine project outcomes and direct projects to success. When you're implementing 005 on your projects, then you're in control of project outcomes, and you're able to lead your projects and lead commissioning to success. So why now? Why do you want to implement this standard right now? Well, projects need your help. Projects all over the world are struggling to meet cost and schedule objectives, and projects need your help to become that leader and step up and lead projects to success. Because when you look at the data that's out there, 9 out of 10 projects are late and over budget, and 99% of commissioning professionals are stuck. They just feel that there's no method or no way to engage on projects and elevate these issues and structure them for success. Well, the 1% of people who follow the ICA commissioning standard with a commissioning first approach, these are the leaders in the industry. These are the true, respected, and trusted commissioning leaders that are really the sought after industry experts to lead projects to success. So I really encourage you to become a true commissioning leader in the industry and step up and lead projects to success. It's very rewarding and a great achievement when you can plan projects in advance with a standardized and structured process like ICA 005, and then execute to that plan for project success. So for anyone that wants a bit more help or guidance in planning projects for success, we do have some additional resources that you can check out here. So the first one is our ICA commissioning project audit. This is our 4-part process to review your commissioning processes and ensure you're aligned with standardized and best practices in the industry. So this includes an audit of your digital data management processes. And if you're thinking that you have document control and you're managing your PDFs, that's not data management, that's document management. What we're talking about with digital data management is true use of the data-rich environment that exists on projects and being able to implement that in a way to help you and your project leaders guide projects to success. When we have high quality data on projects, that allows us to make high quality decisions. And we want to be taking advantage of the advanced systems that are out there to allow us to manage this data and truly put it to good use on projects. The second one is a strategic audit. So from your strategic commissioning planning aspects that are taking place during project concept and project feed phases, how are you implementing commissioning from a strategic standpoint to get the value and benefits that it allows? Contractual audit. So how are you implementing the ICA Global Commissioning Standard in your contractual documents? How are you actually implementing the commissioning process in a structured contractual way to enforce compliance and ensure you're getting the results that you want on projects? And then from a standardization perspective, the industry has been very disjointed and all over the place. Standardized processes, just like every other industry has done, helps everybody understand the benefits of commissioning and follow standardized processes to guide projects to success. So if you want to check out our project commissioning audit process, you can go to icxa.net/audit, and we'll be able to help you out plan and implement your projects for strategic commissioning success. This is for you if your organization lacks any mature commissioning processes or maybe has some more outdated processes, is following an older standard from a decade or two ago. This is to bring your projects up to the level of expertise that's required to deliver projects for success. If your organization lacks a cohesive, integrated data management plan, then this is something you'll want to look at to bring your organization up to the right levels. If your projects are late and over budget, then this is definitely something that you want to check out so you can transform your commissioning project delivery. Go to icxa.net/audit. All right, if you'd like to check out our commissioning leadership programs, we've got 2 options for you there as well. Our commissioning leadership programs are really if you want to step up and become that true commissioning leader. If you're just interested in being a follower and filling out your checklist, that's fine. You can do that on projects. But if you want to step up and be a leader, then this is a program that can help you get there to become the go-to expert leading projects to success. And you can check that out at icxa.net/leadership. And this is for you, really, if you've worked on projects and you just know there must be a better way. At the end of projects, it just seems like a lot of chaos. And if you're just done, you're just sick of that poorly managed projects at the end, and you just know you need a better way. And you really want to be able to be the one to step up and become that leader and make a bigger impact. So this is the leadership program for you to help you accelerate your career and get to that point. icxa.net/leadership, and you can become the trusted commissioning leader in your industry. Some other resources, if you don't already have the commissioning standard, there's no cost to get it. You can go to icxa.net/join. That'll get you access to the members area, and you can download the standard in there. All 9 parts of it are available. So if you haven't already, check that out, icxa.net/join. Also, this is a good 1-page brochure if you're talking to your management and explaining this standard to them and why you want to use it on projects. This is a good 1-page overview sheet of the standard, can help you explain the standard to others, help them understand the benefits, and hopefully get them on board to implement these processes on projects for successful delivery. All right, so we're basically right on time here. This is ICA 005. The next workshop we've got is March 19th. That's next week, and we'll be going through ICA 006. This is on manufacturing installation and construction completions and what that process looks like. So definitely check out any of the resources that I mentioned there if you're interested, and definitely want to see you at next week's live workshop session where we go through the next part of the standard. And now we can open it up and go through any questions that you have. So I'll go back to the comments section here and review any questions. If you have any questions while I'm going through this, definitely shoot them into the chat and we'll get your questions answered. So first one, I also include troubleshooting. Yep, troubleshooting is a very important aspect of commissioning, right? Because despite our best plans and despite our best efforts, we will run into challenges, we will run into problems. And that's why we love commissioning, right? Is we're going to solve those problems. So troubleshooting, technical problems in the field, project management problems or sequencing with our scheduling or our test activities. This is all part of our troubleshooting activities, right? And that's why we go into this career, is because that's always the fun and exciting part, is when we run into problems and challenges, we get to solve them and move on to the next challenge and take projects towards success. So you're right, definitely troubleshooting is required as well. Question from Riddell. Hey, Riddell. Dell, how are you? Good to see you. Cybersecurity is also included now in the commissioning test. Absolutely, it is. Yeah, a whole aspect of NERC cybersecurity. And it's such a big topic, similar to operational readiness in parallel with commissioning. NERC cybersecurity testing to do all of the aspects for testing, and also all of the compliance methods to gather evidence to confirm cybersecurity compliance as well. So those two aspects are huge on projects, and becoming more and more as our projects are more sophisticated, more integrated with more SCADA systems. Cybersecurity is a huge issue to protect our critical assets from bad actors that are out there in the world. So definitely, good point, Dell. Cybersecurity is also included now in commissioning test. And let me know in the chat if cybersecurity is interesting. I could do a future presentation on specifically on NERC cybersecurity and go through all the details of what that process looks like as well. If you think that would be helpful, then maybe shoot that in the chat and we can have a specific discussion just on NERC cybersecurity. For offshore oil and gas projects, especially Brazil, there are CITRs for X inspection. Yes, I've heard of CITRs, and when we were developing the global commissioning standard, that was the discussion: is would we include CITRs or not? We chose not to, just at this point in time, to focus everybody on the standardized process for A's and B's. But yes, I have seen some implement also CITRs as well. It does help sometimes when you're preparing your commissioning software to align A, B, and C ITRs. So that's maybe a preference, or depending on your process, to implement a CITR as well. So yep, good comment. All right. Any other questions? Shoot them in the chat. I want to make sure that you get all your questions answered here before you go forward and start working on your projects. I will mention again that ICA 005 is really the heart of your early commissioning planning. If you're skipping this process and not implementing this commissioning execution planning phase of your projects, then you're not really following a commissioning process. You're just winging it in the end. You're just lacking any sort of commissioning strategy, and you're only focusing on testing in the end. Everything that's defined in ICA 005 is really the aspect of planning your projects for success. And it's not a process to be skipped. I see too many projects that overlook commissioning engineering and only focus on construction completions onward. And if that's your plan, then you're not really implementing any type of commissioning process. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'm glad I got all your questions answered. Let's leave it there for today. Definitely come back next week and check out our next session on ICA 006 for manufacturing, installation, and construction completions. And thanks for joining today, and I hope to see you again.
Thanks for listening. To become a member of the Industrial Commissioning Association, visit icxa.net. Members get access to commissioning standards, procurement specifications, commissioning training and certification, plus many more specialized resources to help you with commissioning of your industrial plant process and energy systems. Visit icxa.net for more information.